Quite a few years ago on YouTube, there was a short video release called Pixels. And it was about 1980s video games coming down to Earth and basically causing havoc, pixelizing everything until the entire world became one pixel. A couple years later, a movie was picked up, you can see in 2015, by Adam Sandler. And love or hate Adam Sandler, love or hate the Pixels movie, me personally, for the most part I enjoyed it. My son and I both liked it. Sure, there were some parts that are really stupid, but hey, it's video game characters attacking the Earth by aliens. So take it for what it's worth. The movie could have been better with certain things, but it really was not that bad, especially if you have some nostalgia for these older video games. You can see here one of the characters was Pac-Man. Another character was Donkey Kong. They also had some Space Invaders. Wasn't a main character. He was flying around towards the end, but I'm a Space Invader guy, so I was happy to see them in there. Of course, Centipede was in there as well, and it was a really nice scene with it. Very 3D and colorful. I really enjoyed that scene. Then they had Galaga in there as well. And I was on eBay. I searched a lot of time just for different things, and I came across these Lots eye block fun characters which have a striking resemblance to the characters in Pixels. Of course, I don't believe these are licensed. I don't know for sure, but they came from China, and I got all 4 of these for $23 shipped. So I figured I'm going to give it a try. I mean, I thought they were kind of neat looking, and I thought I'd give it a shot. So when it was shipped to me, this is how they came. It was in a soft pack envelope from China. And I'm kind of glad they did it this way. You can see all the boxes here were unassembled, and all the parts were individual in separate bags. And all the boxes came pristine, so I'm really happy about that. And the boxes themselves are pretty nice. They're very shiny, good artwork, and the good stock of cardboard. And you can see they have separate bags here with all the different parts in it. And you know, they're not Legos. I've seen them in at Toys R Us. They have these smaller blocks. I forgot what they're called. But even the blocks themselves in these bags, they're not cheap, flimsy, like you're gonna snap them. They're not soft. They're pretty solid, pretty good quality, and they're very colorful. So I'm happy with the packaging. I'm happy with the blocks and the quality of the blocks themselves. And the instructions were pretty thorough, but there were some issues with it, and we'll get to that more in the build video. You can see here's a closer shot of Q-Bert and his instructions, and he looks pretty good. Centipede, I think, overall is one of my favorites, just because I think it looks really a lot like the character in the movie, and it's very colorful. Pac-Man's Pac-Man. Some people don't like him with the eyes. I think when you do a character with like a toy like this, you have to kind of have eyes, not just the one you see in the arcade machine. And it came out pretty well. I do like that as well. Again, very colorful. And of course, Donkey Kong, he was the most complicated one. He had the most parts, and that's the one I want to concentrate on the build in this video. I'll show the other ones completed, but in the actual video itself, this is the one I'm going to work on. So you can see here, here's the box and all the parts, how it comes. You have your box, which you can put together or not. It's actually do so. All the blocks, a stand. I've heard some people say they've seen these without stands, so I'm kind of glad this comes with a stand. And a nice quality instruction manual, very colorful, good quality paper. There's some issues with it, but we'll get to that in a minute. And then all the blocks. And this came, I believe it was 480 blocks. They give extras. I assume they measure these by weight. Each block has its own weight, and the machine sorts them. And this is the only one out of all the kits that had one part missing. Wasn't tragic, I'll explain that part later. But again, these blocks here, they're very colorful, shiny. They felt solid, and putting them together was not hard. There are some mistakes you're going to make because the instructions are not super clear, and getting them apart could be a pain. and it's something I'll show you again at the end, which would have made it a little bit easier to do. But let's get started with this. Now, I will say, I don't care how good your eyes are, you're going to need one of these, and I'll get into that in the next page. You're definitely going to want some decent, halfway decent magnifying lens. So here's the front of the instructions here, and they give you a listing of all the parts that should be in the kit. I highly doubt you're going to go through and count these beforehand. You're going to get right into the build. But I was actually missing one of these guys. We only had 16, not 17 of these 2 blocks, ground blocks. And we'll get into that a little bit later. But you can see here, they give you pretty good step-by-step instructions. You got to kind of think, I guess, how the guy put this together did, which may not be the most intuitive. But once you get the hang of it, it's not too bad. And here's a picture of the back and your final step. So 22 quote-unquote steps, but there are sub-steps, so it's a lot more than 22. This whole build took me about 2.5 hours. It was the first one I was doing. I'm trying to learn and figure out these instructions here, so that this one took me the most time. They went quicker as the other builds went through. So you can see here's the bag of parts. I would recommend probably a tray of some kind so these don't fall on the floor. I'm usually pretty careful, and I didn't have that problem. But if one of these did get knocked on the floor, they're probably going to be pretty hard to find. Some of these are pretty small. But just dump the bag here and let's get into the build. Now, here's the first thing I'll mention why you want a magnifying lens. When you're looking at these steps, it's step 1, and then it really should say step A, B, and C. They don't really tell you that. So you got to first build this and use the magnifying lens to kind of, you have to figure out where these lines are to get your part. They don't tell you which parts to use, they just kind of show you. So the magnifying lens will just show you all these different spots, and you can count how many tops of each block you're going to use and so forth. See, some are kind of hard to tell what they are, so you have to be really careful. And you also can't start here, so you'll never build it right. You got to start at the bottom. So this is A, then B, then C, and you have to look and see exactly where these blocks go down. This will, once you get started, it'll go a little bit quicker. But this is going to take you the most time, just figuring out these steps. And then we have our first step completed here. You can see the blocks, they're colorful. They're not flimsy, they're not rubbery like they're going to bend or snap really easy. They're actually pretty good quality. I'm really happy with them. And here's our step 2 again. It's a little bit easier when you see like different colored blocks. You obviously know where they're going to go on here. But again, you have to be very careful putting these down. Sometimes you might have it shifted one over and it screws everything up, and like, where the hell did I go wrong? And sometimes you have to really start taking it apart to fix the lower part. Just take your time and make sure you're counting and being very accurate when you're putting these blocks down. Now we're on our step 3, and you can see his teeth are starting to be built up, and his cheekbone on his head. Again, I'm really just very happy with everything here. It's going together pretty smooth. It did take some time to figure out again where everybody sat properly. Sometimes you had one of these turns, you have to fix it, but it wasn't too bad. Looking back on it now, obviously, 20/20 hindsight. So you can see the head's almost done, and it's looking exactly like you see in the box. Not like they sell you one thing and it's a different picture in the box. It's exactly what you see. So the head is almost done, and you can see the steps here. Once you really have to, when you see this different color, know these are the previous steps. And then your lower A, and then your B build, and then if necessary a C build, and so forth. So here's the head completed, and I put it on top of the box so you can see it's exactly what they represent on the box. And it took some time, and actually I thought this was going to be the hardest part of it, but it just took time. It really wasn't difficult. The body, who I thought was going to be easier, turned out to be more challenging. So the legs went together very simple, and once I did this, I'm like, okay, this will definitely go to get put together a lot easier than the head was. Again, step 9, A, then B, C, D, E. And you repeat that a second time for the other leg, then you got to put these on top of that. You can see the body went together fairly well. When this got done, it started getting more hard to tell because some of these parts were in the back, as you can see in these next steps coming up. So it was kind of hard to judge where they were. There was a little trial and error. They could be a little more clearer with the instructions, maybe even show parts, and you'll use X amount of this part and X amount of this part, so you know. Now you can see here, this was, I'm not sure if it was a missing part or they just had the instructions wrong. There's supposed to be in the instructions, they showed a 4-piece. Single row of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 that went back here, and 1, 2, 3, 4. You can see I didn't have it. I went through my parts multiple times. I didn't have 2 sets of 4s. I did have 2 sets of 3s, and I ended up once I put it all together and I noticed I had 2 spares of 3s, I put it in here just to hide this part back here. You can't really tell inside if it was, there's 2 empty spots in here. There's no way to tell. So I ended up using 2 rows of 3s since there were no 2 rows of 4s in my packaging. Again, I'm not sure if it was an error in the packaging, sending me the wrong part, or if the instructions were wrong in showing a 4 instead of a 3 part going in there. I'm going to assume it was a wrong part because the instructions showed 4, and 4 would have probably fit in here better than the 2 3s, but the 2 3s didn't work out. Again, more steps, just building up, starting on the 2 hands over here. Well, 1 hand, and that's his actually chest on that side, to be honest. And once I got past this level, the arm build with the barrel went easier, but that was my other small issue I had. And you can see these parts here, only 1 block holds it on, so a little bit loose. So you might want to crazy glue or glue them to make sure they don't come apart, assuming you don't want them to. Me, once these are built, I don't want to take them apart. I'll leave them this way. So I'll probably go back on some of these smaller parts and just put a little crazy glue just to make sure they stay in place. And you can see the arm starts building up rather quickly. I had 1 small error here where this block was actually here. And it just didn't count over right. Made a small adjustment and it came over fine. You can see the arm's been built up even more. And now we're starting on the barrel. And this was the only other spot they had a small issue with. And I'll get to that just a second in the next step, actually. But the barrel, again, everything looks pretty good. It's pretty solid. It's not super flimsy. Only spots like this little guy right here, which only got 1 little guy holding him on. And here you can see. Probably a little glue just to make sure they don't come off. The rest of it is very solid. Okay. So in building the barrel here, you can see it's going rather nice. But they show this one right here. There's a block here. So on this end, you have 2 like little right angle guys, a 4 and then a 2. I went through this a ton of times. There was no 2. Didn't have it. But I did have this 1 spare 1. So what I ended up doing was, since the head's going to be here anyway and hiding most of it, I took this 1 and put it up in here just to make it look symmetrical on both sides. But this part was missing. And again, every step here, I put the exact blocks down, minus that 2 4s I didn't have. I used 2 3s and this backside there. But that still was not this 2. This 2 was just not in the packing. You can see the barrel's almost completed. And then it is completed minus the 1 missing block. But you'll see later I took this little guy here and it's hard to tell. I shoved him in. And with the head on, you're really hard-pressed to tell that it's the wrong part. So there it is with the head attached. And again, it looks just like it does in the box art. I think it looks pretty good. I'm happy with it. And then it's time to work on the tray. And again, same thing. I had all the parts. Just count 1 2 3, 1 2 3. Put this guy down. Then you can kind of judge where all the next ones go. It's just all counting, unless you want to change it. I mean, you obviously can do that. But I wanted to keep it. I did that in the box, and it went together in probably 2 or 3 minutes. It didn't take long at all. And then you put your character on his pad, and that's it. So I'm going to do a couple shots around him. Just so you can see how he looks in the 360 view. You can see here, that's a 2 block, that's a single block, but you really can't tell. With the head here, you can't tell that's the wrong block. So it came out pretty good. Is completed. Let's just take a look at the other 3 in their completed forms. I'm not going to go through the build process. It's exactly the same. And you can see here that Donkey Kong was the most at 480 pieces. The Pac-Man and Qbert both are at 380 pieces. And the Centipede, surprisingly, is only 360. And it just looks really nice. I like how we turned out. These 2 are probably my favorite. Qbert is good. I don't like how they did his snout. I may change this, but he's fine. And then Pac-Man's Pac-Man. Nothing wrong with that. So here's Qbert, all completed. And it's growing on me. I think his snout should have been one thickness and not like enlarged. But that's just my taste. Maybe I'll change it. Maybe I'll leave it as it is. You see, even when it was completed, I still have a bunch of parts left over. So I don't know if they use some type of computer checking to make the parts, or some kid making them and putting them in bags. But in any case, for the most part, aside from Donkey Kong's one possible error in the documentation or part, and the one missing part, none of the other kids had a problem with missing any piece. Love how he came out. I think he looks great, and he's held together with like a ball and joint, and they're pretty stiff, so you can actually move the body, place it how you want it, and it will stay in that position. He's actually elevated above the block quite a bit, and he's holding no problem. I'm not afraid of him, gravity slowly pulling it down. He will definitely stay where he's going, but not so much you can't move it. So again, very nice, very nice. Pac-Man, no real issues other than, again, I'll put some glue maybe under this one. This is held on with two little parts, this whole section here, and it could fall off easy. And when you went to put him on the base, definitely put more pressure on the back. If you put it more in the center, he will, in my case, break in half, and this piece will go flying, and you got to find it somewhere, which obviously I did. But he's very sturdy, but when you're pressing him on the base, just press more in the back than in the middle, because he will simply fold in the middle. And this cheekbone and on the other side, it's really only one block holding it on here. So I would probably put a drop of glue just to make sure, because it kind of, you can see it sags a little bit. But other than that, very nice once again. All the blocks are very colorful, bright, smooth, shiny, and solidly built. They're not cheap at all for the price. $23 shipped. I think. About putting it together, I wish I had known about this. After I put them all together and I was throwing away the packing that it came in, I saw a little card in there, and the little card had these two taped to it. And I wish I had known that beforehand. Again, it wasn't too hard to put together without them, but tweezers on some of the smaller parts might have been a little helpful. And this here is a way to put blocks on in small areas or pop them off. What I was doing was, if I put them in the wrong area, I had to take a bigger block, put it on top, and kind of wiggle it left and right to get it popped off, just like a regular Lego. But this would have been very helpful in getting them off, and just a shame I didn't realize that they were included for free. These were included for free in the packaging box. I just didn't see them. So here they are, just all taking a nice photo shoot together with their boxes, and again, they look really, really good. I'm very happy with them. And here's a shot of them with my two new machines I have built. I'll have videos on these coming soon. One is a My Arcade Dream Gear 201 that I converted to a Raspberry Pi. And the other is an MGA Breakout, which used to be it's very small. And I managed to put something in there. It's not a Pi, but it's still got 152 games shoved in there, and it turned out really, really nice. So look for those guys in videos coming soon for my channel. So for now, this video will come to a close. Everyone, thanks for taking the time to watch this video. Thanks for liking and subscribing. And remember everyone, game on.
You're right.